I once had it all, a stable job, a loving husband, and what seemed like a perfect future. But one wrong choice shattered everything. This is my true story, a bitter lesson about betrayal, loss, and regret. Hi, fellow Redditors. I'm Charlotte, 34, married to Evelyn, 27, and I want to share how my own carelessness ruined what was once a perfect marriage with the man who respected me the most. This post isn't meant for those looking to insult me or call me a bad wife. I'm here to reflect on my mistakes and, hopefully, help someone else avoid doing the same. Since I was a child, I've always been ambitious. My dream was to work for TVG, one of the biggest and oldest names in the industry. I worked hard, kept my GPA impeccable, aced the placement interviews, and eventually landed a job at my dream company. I promised myself that I would become a manager within 2 years. I knew it would take dedication, perseverance, and constant learning. And so I threw myself into work, taking every opportunity to grow and prove my skills. As I rose through the ranks, I stayed focused on my goal, constantly seeking feedback, finding mentors, and working late nights when needed. I met Evelyn through my family. He had recently moved into our neighborhood and went to the same church. My parents couldn't stop talking about him after he once helped them with their car. At first, I wasn't even interested. But just to get my parents off my back, I agreed to meet him once. He was handsome, charming, and made me laugh. It didn't feel forced spending time with him. We didn't date long. My hectic schedule made that difficult, and Evelyn believed that dating too much killed the excitement in a relationship. So, just 4 months after meeting, we got married. I know that might shock some people, but frankly, marriage was never a priority for me. I made that clear to Evelyn from the start. I told him about my goals and ambitions, and he said he was proud of me and supported everything I was working toward. We both agreed that marriage wouldn't hinder our individual growth. We promised to support each other's dreams and still pursue our own goals while being married. This mutual understanding made it all feel right. Evelyn worked in construction, which meant he had flexible hours and often traveled for jobs. That was perfect for me. I didn't have to stress about being a dutiful wife or making time constantly for him. Marriage, for me, felt more like having a roommate. Evelyn came and went based on his schedule. Meanwhile, I was focused on climbing the corporate ladder, aiming for that promotion. One of my teammates, Noah, was always there to help and encourage me. When things got overwhelming, he was my sounding board. He understood my stress and frustrations better than anyone. The dynamic between Noah and me was completely different than what I had with Evelyn. Then came the big moment. I had to prepare a major presentation for the final round of my promotion interview. So, I asked Noah if he could help me with it. Obviously, we couldn't stay at the office late, so I invited him over to my house to finish up the work, so I asked Noah to come over if he had no problem. We went to my place and started working on the presentation, which ended up taking longer than expected. At some point, his wife called to ask when he'd be home. I took the phone and apologized for keeping her husband so long, assuring her he'd be home soon. We ordered pizza and were reviewing the presentation one last time to make sure everything was right. That's when he accidentally dropped a slice on his pants. Out of habit, I grabbed a napkin and started wiping it off. Without thinking, he held my hand and kissed me. Before I could react, he pulled me closer and kissed me again. With my husband away for so long, I'd been missing affection, and I started kissing him back. I think the accidental touch aroused him, and that's what made him act on impulse. We made out for 10 minutes, then looked at each other, stunned. He told me he had to go, or else his wife would kill him. I let him leave, but I couldn't stop thinking about those 10 minutes. Again and again, it played in my head. The next day at work, things were awkward between Noah and me. We tried so hard to act normal, but it wasn't easy. We eventually met near the emergency exit to talk about what to do, but we ended up making out again. After that day, every time we were alone, we ended up talking less and doing more. It became like an addiction. We couldn't help ourselves. We were drawn to each other. We were both married, and we knew what we were doing was wrong. But the more we tried to stay away, the harder it got, especially since we still had to work together. Eventually, we gave up trying to maintain distance and just went with the flow. Nobody was being forced. We both agreed on everything we did. And deep down, we both knew that if it ever came down to choosing between our marriages and the affair, we'd choose our spouses. We never said that out loud, but it was understood. We valued our marriages more than the affair. Eventually, I got the promotion I'd been working so hard for. I was officially made a team manager. I was thrilled because I had earned it. And guess what? I made sure Noah was part of the team I'd be leading. I didn't want anyone else to have him, if you know what I mean. Being a team lead was a whole different ballgame. It was stressful, tiring, full of never-ending complaints and pressure to meet deadlines. I lost my temper more than I liked. But thank God I had Noah to help me cope with the chaos. Not many people were happy about my promotion. Some secretly hoped I'd fail. But I was determined to prove them wrong, to show them what I was capable of. At the same time, Evelyn was assigned a new construction project in Detroit. It was a huge deal and could open major doors for his career. He was a little hesitant at first, but I encouraged him to go for it. And yes, I was genuinely happy for Evelyn. But I also knew that Evelyn being away meant more time with Noah. As soon as Evelyn left, I called Noah and asked him to come over to discuss a few project details. Of course, we couldn't make his wife suspicious. She already didn't like me, said I overworked him. Little did she know what kind of work we were really doing. I didn't care whether she liked me or not. I wasn't interested in her, I was interested in her husband. I was juggling a new project and a full-blown affair with Noah. I completely lost track of time. After 2 months, I suddenly realized I hadn't had my period in a while. I rushed to the pharmacy, bought a pregnancy test, and took it. It came back positive. I couldn't believe it. How could I have been so careless? My mind spun with panic, how this could impact my life and everyone around me. I knew I had to make some hard choices and face the consequences of what I'd done. I decided to talk to Noah in person. I didn't want to break this kind of news over a phone call. I asked him to meet me at our usual cafe. When we met, I told him I was pregnant. His reaction? Immediate denial. He told me the baby couldn't be his, it could be Evelyn's. How could I be sure? I laughed bitterly at his response and told him that Evelyn had been away for over a month, and I had already missed 2 periods. There was a 100% chance the baby was his, not Evelyn's. But he still insisted it wasn't possible. He said we had been careful. Then he asked whether I had forgotten to take my birth control. I had more than a few times. He said that wasn't his fault. He had taken every precaution to avoid this. So I shouldn't blame him. Then he said something that crushed me. He had a wife, and if she found out about this, it would destroy him. He asked me if I had missed taking my contraceptives, which I had, more than a few times. He said that me not taking the pills wasn't his fault. He had taken every precaution necessary to avoid getting me pregnant, so I couldn't blame him. He reminded me again that he had a wife, and if she ever found out, he'd be ruined. I couldn't believe how he was pushing all the blame onto me, when he was equally responsible for the mess we were in. I told him not to worry, I didn't want any more problems either. I would abort the baby. I went home and booked an appointment with a gynecologist for the following week. I was exhausted from the emotional chaos and fell asleep quickly. The next day, I woke up and saw Evelyn lying beside me. I smiled at him and went back to sleep. Since it was Saturday, I got up late, just wanting to rest and do nothing. I noticed that Evelyn was already up and preparing lunch for both of us. When I went into the bathroom to freshen up, I saw the trash bin hadn't been emptied from the night before. I was throwing away some tissues when I noticed it, the pregnancy test, still in the bin, showing 2 very clear red lines. I froze. I knew I had to hide it before Evelyn saw. I wasn't sure if he'd already noticed, but I decided to take my chances. If he had seen it, he would have already confronted me. I got dressed and went to the kitchen. Evelyn was almost done cooking. He smiled at me, which made me relax a little. Maybe he really hadn't noticed. We sat down to eat. As always, his food tasted better than anything I could cook. While eating, Evelyn asked if there was something I wanted to share. So I started telling him about the new project I was managing and how stressful it had been. He just smiled and nodded, reacting calmly to everything I said. After lunch, we went back to our room. Evelyn said he had something interesting to show me. He asked me to close my eyes and wait. By this point, I was sure he thought everything in our marriage was just fine. I assumed it was some surprise gift. I closed my eyes, smiling in anticipation. He told me to extend my hand. I did. A moment later, I opened my eyes, and there it was. The used pregnancy test kit. Right in my palm. I looked at him in shock. He folded his arms and asked calmly, "Do you like your surprise?" I realized then that he had known all along. He had found the test in the trash and pretended not to know for the past hour. He had already pieced everything together. Evelyn told me he had been away for more than a month for his project. There was no way the baby could be his. He confronted me. At first, I was adamant that the baby was his. I argued that he came home on weekends, so it was possible. But he quickly shut that down. He reminded me that we hadn't had sex for at least 3 months. There was always something going on, he said, excuses, stress, arguments, timing. Then he said something that shook me to my core. He had a vasectomy. Due to complications. A long time ago. There was no way he could ever make me or anyone pregnant. And that, of course, was one of the reasons I had agreed to marry him in the first place. I had wanted to focus entirely on my career. I didn't want to be pressured into motherhood. With Evelyn, I felt safe from that expectation. But now, he knew the truth. After a tense back and forth, I couldn't lie anymore. I broke down and confessed that the baby was Noah's. All hell broke loose. Evelyn's face turned red with rage. He demanded to know everything. He wanted to understand how I could betray him like this. And why I kept it a secret. Tearfully, I admitted everything. Evelyn told me that he could have easily divorced me if he knew I wasn't happy with him. But the truth was, I wasn't unhappy. In fact, I was very happy being married to Evelyn. I could do anything I wanted, and honestly, it didn't even feel like I was married. I never really thought about it before, but Evelyn gave me freedom. He gave me space to live life on my terms. I wasn't even sure why I started having an affair with Noah. Maybe it was just my body craving something new. I told Evelyn that I was sorry, that I couldn't even explain why I did it. Maybe I liked Noah as a coworker, and maybe that led me to wonder what it would be like to get intimate with him. My confession only made Evelyn angrier. The fact that I had no valid reason for betraying him made everything worse. I could see how helpless he felt, standing there, realizing I had wrecked our marriage for something that even I couldn't fully explain. He asked me to stop talking. Said he had heard enough. Then he left the room, picked up his bag, and walked out. I didn't even try to stop him, because honestly, I was confused myself. I figured it was best if we spent some time apart, just to process everything before deciding what to do next. The next day at work, I received a big bouquet with a large card congratulating me on being pregnant. It was anonymous, but I knew exactly who had sent it. About 30 minutes later, a huge cake arrived with a note that read, "Congratulations on becoming a father, Noah." The look on both my face and Noah's said it all. People around us quickly put 2 and 2 together. The rumor that Noah and I were having a baby after an affair spread like wildfire. Shortly after, I was called in by my boss. He said he had no choice but to report me to the Work Ethics Committee, just to ensure the rumors weren't true. I confidently assured him that they were false, that someone was going out of their way to ruin my reputation. I believed Noah would have my back. A few days later, Noah was called in by the Ethics Committee. He was questioned for almost 4 hours. We were told not to communicate with each other until the case was resolved. When he saw me later that day, Noah smiled at me. I took it as a sign of reassurance that he had done the right thing, that he had defended me. I felt a sense of relief. I truly believed the allegations would soon be cleared, and I would keep my job, the most important thing in the world to me at that point. I went back to work as usual. But 2 days later, I was asked to go on a leave of absence until the investigation concluded. It was protocol, so I complied, not thinking too much of it. I never once thought Noah would turn on me. But I was wrong. Noah very cleverly flipped the narrative and accused me of workplace sexual misconduct. He claimed I took advantage of my managerial position and blackmailed him into providing sexual favors. I was stunned. I was now on the verge of losing my job and being blacklisted from the entire industry. If I couldn't gather any proof that our relationship was consensual, my professional life would be over. I was crushed with stress. That's when I found out Evelyn had done something completely unexpected. While I was packing my bags to leave, because Evelyn wanted me out, I realized my phone was completely soaked in water. He had accidentally dropped it. When I confronted him, he claimed it was a mistake, that he didn't realize it had happened until it was too late. But I didn't believe him. There was nothing I could do. My phone was ruined. And with it, the only proof I had, the text messages between me and Noah. We never exchanged pictures, just messages. Now I had nothing. No way to prove that everything had been mutual. I nearly cried thinking about how hard I had worked to get where I was. Becoming a manager was no small feat, and now it was all going to be taken away. Soon after, the investigation concluded. I was found guilty of workplace harassment and asking for sexual favors. I appealed to the Human Resources team, but they denied my request, stating that they had strong testimony claiming I had harassed and overworked others. I told them there must have been a misunderstanding. If I could just speak to the witness directly, maybe the outcome would be different. They weren't entirely on board, but since I had been a good employee with no prior issues, they made an exception. I was asked to come back in 2 days and present my case again, with the witness present. I came prepared, confident, ready to explain everything, that Noah was the one who initiated the affair, that he kissed me first. But when I walked in, I felt the ground shift beneath me. The witness was a random woman I didn't recognize, someone who didn't even work at our company. Then she was introduced as Noah's wife. I felt like the earth crumbled beneath my feet. How was I supposed to defend myself against the wife of the man I'd been sleeping with? Still, I had to try. This wasn't the time to give up. She played recordings, snippets of conversations where I had admitted that Noah was helping me at my home with work. I couldn't deny any of it. It was true. I had spoken with her a few times. She had already voiced her frustration about him working late, even beyond normal hours. She had evidence. I had none. I defended myself by telling the committee that Noah was the one who started everything, that he kissed me first. But his wife insisted that he often came home upset, always complaining that I was forcing myself on him. It became my word against a husband and wife who were clearly doing everything they could to make sure I took the fall for the entire affair. In the end, I lost my job. Worse than that, I was blacklisted from the entire industry. Update: I was burning through my savings quickly. Very soon, I would be left with nothing. I had seen it coming, so I had already moved into a cheap motel to save on rent. I'd been staying there for the past month. The divorce case was also draining what was left of my finances. I knew fighting in court would be useless. Evelyn could easily prove I had an affair, and he'd walk away with everything we owned. I begged him to settle for a mutual agreement. I promised I wouldn't ask for alimony. I told him he could take anything he wanted. But Evelyn refused. He insisted on going to court. He said he needed a fair trial to find closure. I'm not sure if that was the real reason, but deep down, I felt like he just wanted to see me suffer. I knew no lawyer would willingly take my case. Everything was stacked against me. And even if one would, I didn't have the money to pay them. I ended up making one of the hardest decisions of my life. I aborted the baby. I wasn't ready to raise a child alone, no job, no home, no support. It crushed me, but I couldn't see another way out. And then, just when I thought Evelyn couldn't possibly humiliate me more, he sent my pregnancy test results to my parents, with a big balloon that read, "Congratulations on becoming grandparents, to embarrass me in front of my family." My parents were staunch Catholics and considered adultery no less than a crime. They stopped picking up my calls and completely cut me off. After I became a manager, I had very few real friends at work, and they immediately cut ties with me too. I basically had no one to talk to, no one to support me during these incredibly difficult times. I feel completely alone. There's no one I can confide in anymore. My parents have practically disowned me. In fact, they've even chosen to take Evelyn's side. They announced to the entire extended family that I was a person without faith and that they no longer wanted anything to do with me because I had brought shame to their name and reputation. This, from the same parents who once beamed with pride because I was the first woman in our family to become a manager in a large corporation. But as they say, when your time is bad, even your shadow leaves you. And that's exactly what I've been feeling for the past few days. There is no one who wants to listen to me or even sympathize with me. Everywhere I go, people stare. Whispers follow me. They make up stories. They call me the unfaithful wife, the woman who took advantage of her naive, loving husband. Sometimes I feel like climbing to the rooftop of a tall building and screaming. I'm not a bad person. I just never thought things would go this far. I wasn't looking forward to the next court hearing. And when it came, I was shocked. Noah, the man I had protected for months, was now standing confidently in court, eager to testify against me. He claimed I had forced him into intimacy to help him advance in his career. I couldn't believe it. Was this the same man who used to motivate me? The same man who constantly tried to please me and talked about promotions like a team? I was horrified by his shamelessness. He made himself look like the victim and wasted no opportunity to paint me as a manipulative predator. Needless to say, I lost the case. And now, I'm stuck in a dingy motel, with no job, no parents, no husband, and basically no one to talk to. But I've made a decision. From now on, I will be a lone warrior. I will fight my battles alone. I'm not writing this post to garner sympathy or forgiveness. I know what I did was wrong. I committed a sin, and no excuse will ever justify my actions. But writing all this down, telling my story, has been my way of coping. It calms me. It allows me to breathe, to process the whirlwind I've been through. This is my outlet. And it's helped me more than any therapist ever did. Sharing my experience has been strangely therapeutic. I hope that maybe, just maybe, someone out there who's struggling might find a piece of themselves in my story. Maybe someone will read this and stop before making the same mistake I did. So thank you, if you've read this far, for joining me in this painful journey of rediscovery. I hope you'll learn from me and never repeat the path I chose. I'm not sharing this story to seek forgiveness, but in hopes that someone standing at a crossroads might think twice. Don't let a moment of weakness cost you everything. I hope my pain teaches you something.